Imagine this: 35 years have passed, and yet one movie still makes people's hearts skip a beat. One love story, one pair of characters, and one unforgettable chemistry that turned a simple romantic comedy into a cultural legend. Now, after decades of waiting, that very story is ready to return. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, the duo that redefined romance for an entire generation, are stepping back into the spotlight. But before we look at what's next, let's rewind to where it all began. The magic of Pretty Woman. Back in 1990, Hollywood was buzzing with action flicks, thrillers, and big blockbusters. And then came a small romantic comedy that nobody expected would change everything. Pretty Woman introduced us to Vivian Ward, a free-spirited woman with dreams bigger than her circumstances, played with dazzling charm by Julia Roberts. Opposite her was Edward Lewis, a wealthy businessman with a cool exterior but a heart quietly searching for meaning, portrayed by Richard Gere. What made this pairing so powerful wasn't just the storyline. It was the way Roberts and Gere lit up the screen together. Their chemistry wasn't forced. It wasn't written. It simply existed. When Roberts laughed, it felt real. When Gere looked at her, audiences believed it. The famous necklace scene, where Edward snaps the jewelry case on Vivian's fingers, wasn't even in the script. It was an improvised moment, and Julia's genuine laugh became one of the most iconic cinematic moments of all time. The film wasn't just a success, it was a phenomenon. With a budget of around $14 million, Pretty Woman went on to gross nearly $500 million worldwide. It became the highest-grossing romantic comedy of all time at that point, and it stayed in the cultural conversation for years. People quoted it. They watched it over and over again. They dreamed of that fairy tale ending where love broke through all barriers. For Julia Roberts, the film transformed her into a superstar. That radiant smile, the fiery personality, the vulnerability she carried, it all made her Hollywood's new it girl. For Richard Gere, who was already admired for roles in American Gigolo and An Officer and a Gentleman, Pretty Woman gave him a defining role as the ultimate gentleman. Together, they became the symbol of on-screen romance, but the impact of Pretty Woman went beyond just box office numbers. It gave people hope. It made them believe in second chances, in unlikely love stories, in the idea that even the most different people can find common ground in the language of the heart. The movie struck a balance between humor, heartbreak, and fantasy in a way that very few films have ever matched. And even today, decades later, Pretty Woman hasn't lost its shine. It's still rewatched, still referenced, still loved. For many, it's not just a movie, it's comfort, nostalgia, and a reminder of a time when Hollywood gave us stories that felt timeless. So now, as news breaks that Roberts and Gere are coming together again, it's not just about a sequel. It's about revisiting that legacy. It's about reigniting a flame that has never truly gone out. Fans aren't just waiting for another movie, they're waiting for the return of that once-in-a-lifetime magic that Pretty Woman first gave us. Why now? That's the question echoing in the minds of every fan who has held on to the magic of Pretty Woman for decades. Why did it take more than 30 years for Hollywood, Julia Roberts, and Richard Gere to finally say yes to a sequel? The answer lies in timing, nostalgia, and the undeniable pull of a love story that the world simply never got over. Over the past few years, Hollywood has been tapping into something powerful: the return of classics. From Top Gun, Maverick to the revival of Sex and the City, studios have realized one thing: people don't just want new stories. They crave the return of the ones that shaped their lives. Audiences want to feel what they felt years ago, sitting in front of a screen, believing in magic for the very first time. Pretty Woman is not just a movie, it's a cultural memory. And cultural memories never fade. They simply wait for the right moment to return, but there's more to this decision than just trends. For years, both Roberts and Gere avoided the idea of a sequel. They often said the original was perfect the way it was, and they didn't want to tarnish its legacy. Julia Roberts in particular has been famously careful about her roles, often saying that she only chooses projects when she feels they truly matter. So what changed? Why now? The truth is, Time itself created the opportunity. The characters of Edward and Vivian are older now, just like the audience who first watched them. The story doesn't have to repeat itself, it can evolve. It can explore what love looks like after decades, after challenges, after the fairy tale ending fades into real life. That's a perspective audiences in today's world can deeply connect with. Many who watched Pretty Woman in 1990 are now in their 50s or 60s. They want to see themselves reflected in a love story that proves romance doesn't have an expiration date. There's also the undeniable fact that the entertainment world has shifted. Streaming giants, fan petitions, and social media campaigns have shown Hollywood the raw demand for reunions. Fans never stopped asking for Roberts and Gere to come back together, and over time, their voices grew too loud to ignore. Every anniversary of Pretty Woman sparked headlines, interviews, and viral clips of the necklace scene or the iconic big mistake. Huge moment. Each time, the demand only grew stronger. Behind the scenes, the industry has also been searching for stories that balance nostalgia with emotional depth. In a world filled with superhero blockbusters and action-heavy franchises, the return of a heartfelt, grounded romance feels refreshing. It's not about explosions or visual effects, it's about emotions, charm, and a love story that feels real. That's exactly what Pretty Woman 2 promises, and let's not forget the undeniable chemistry between Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, even outside of Pretty Woman. Their reunion in Runaway Bride years later proved that audiences couldn't get enough of them together. The cameras love them. Viewers adore them. And the industry knows that their return isn't just about reliving the past. It's about reigniting something audiences have been starving for, authentic, star-powered romance. So why now? Because the world is ready. Roberts and Gere are ready. And the story of Edward and Vivian has reached a point where it doesn't just make sense to continue, it feels necessary. A sequel today doesn't mean repeating yesterday. It means adding a new chapter to a story that fans thought was over but secretly always hoped would continue. The timing is perfect. The demand is stronger than ever, and the stage is set for a comeback that could once again redefine what romance on screen means. Pretty Woman 2 isn't just another sequel, it's a response to decades of longing. Proof that some love stories truly never die. Asterisk when people hear that Pretty Woman 2 is finally happening. The very first question is, what story could possibly be told that lives up to the original? After all, Pretty Woman ended like a modern fairy tale. Edward overcame his fears. Vivian found her courage, and together they chose love over everything else. But life doesn't stop at a happy ending. Real love continues. It changes, it struggles, and it grows. That is where this long-awaited sequel might find its heart. One possible storyline is that we meet Edward and Vivian many years later, no longer the glamorous couple frozen in time, but two people who've built a life together. What happens when a fairy tale romance has to deal with the realities of everyday life, business responsibilities, family pressures, and the passage of time? Perhaps Edward, once the confident businessman, now faces the challenges of stepping away from his empire. Maybe Vivian, who once dreamed of a different life, has found her own path, becoming more than the woman we first met. Together, they could be navigating the balance of love, independence, and what it means to grow old side by side. Another idea could bring in the theme of family. Imagine Edward and Vivian having children, now adults themselves, trying to navigate a world that no longer believes in fairy tale endings. The sequel could explore the clash of generations, where their children may view their love story as unrealistic, only to discover that real love, with all its ups and downs, is the most realistic thing of all. This would allow the story to expand while still keeping its roots deeply tied to Edward and Vivian's romance. Of course, fans would expect more than just a cozy domestic tale. Conflict is what makes romance thrive on screen. One possible dramatic twist could be that Edward and Vivian, after years of being together, have grown apart. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because life pushed them in different directions. Maybe Edward's devotion to his business left Vivian feeling overlooked. Maybe Vivian's new independence created a distance neither of them expected. The sequel could follow their journey of rediscovery, reminding us that true love doesn't just happen once, it has to be chosen again and again. Even after decades, there's also room for fresh faces to bring energy into the story. A rival, business partner, a charming younger man interested in Vivian, or even a friend from her past could create tension that forces Edward to fight for her in a way he hasn't had to in years. Fans loved the original because it wasn't just about glamour, it was about vulnerability. Seeing Edward and Vivian challenged again, this time with higher stakes and deeper emotions, could be exactly what makes the sequel unforgettable. Comedy too would need its place. Pretty Woman had humor woven into its heart, from Vivian's witty lines to the unforgettable shopping scene. A sequel could bring back that lightness with clever nods to the past. Imagine a scene where Vivian walks into another high-end store, this time with her daughter, only to relive the moment when she once declared, "Big mistake, huge." That kind of callback would ignite nostalgia while creating something new for a modern audience. And then, there's the question every fan will want answered: what does their love look like now? The sequel could explore themes that matter more today than ever before: how love survives not just in youth, but in maturity, how passion evolves, and how commitment is tested. It could show that romance isn't just about grand gestures, but about the small moments, the laughs over breakfast, the quiet hand-holding, the unspoken understanding after years together. But above all, the story has to remind us of what made the original so powerful, the idea that love can be transformative, that it can rescue us not in the way of a prince saving a princess, but in the way two people save each other by choosing to love in spite of flaws, fears, and challenges. If Pretty Woman 2 captures that essence, then it won't just be another sequel, it will be a continuation of one of cinema's greatest romances, whatever storyline unfolds. One thing is certain, audiences don't just want another movie. They want to see Edward and Vivian again, to believe that their love survived, and to feel the spark that once lit up the world. The sequel doesn't need to reinvent their love story, it just needs to remind us why we fell in love with them. In the first place, the announcement of Pretty Woman 2 didn't just stop fans in their tracks, it sent shockwaves across Hollywood. After all, reuniting Julia Roberts and Richard Gere is more than casting, it's history coming back to life. The world has waited for this pairing to return, and now the cameras are ready to roll once again. But the real buzz isn't just about who's confirmed, it's about how the production will honor the past, while creating something entirely new. Let's start with the heart of the project, Julia Roberts. For years, Roberts has been selective with her roles, choosing carefully, stepping back from constant Hollywood visibility to focus on family and projects that truly resonate with her. For her to return as Vivian Ward after 3 decades is more than a casting decision, it's a statement. Roberts has said in past interviews that she wouldn't revisit Vivian unless the story was worth telling, unless it respected the original magic. Her involvement means one thing: the script must have struck a chord. Fans can expect her to bring not just the charm and sparkle of the young Vivian, but also the depth and wisdom of a woman who has lived, loved, and evolved. Then there's Richard Gere. Once the silver-haired icon of romance, Gere has taken quieter roles in recent years, focusing more on humanitarian work than the Hollywood spotlight. But his return as Edward Lewis feels almost poetic. Edward was once the man who taught us that vulnerability could exist beneath power and wealth. Seeing Gere step back into those shoes in his 70s will add an entirely new dimension to the character. This isn't just Edward the businessman, it's Edward the husband, the father, perhaps even the man reflecting on what his choices truly meant. Gere's calm charisma and soulful presence could elevate the sequel into something more profound than anyone expects. Of course, the biggest question beyond Roberts and Gere is this: who else will join them? Rumors are already swirling. Could we see returning faces from the original, like Hector Elizondo, who played the charming hotel manager? Barney Thompson, the quiet hero who believed in Vivian when no one else did? Fans adore him, and his presence would add a beautiful layer of continuity. Or will the film introduce a younger cast to carry the story forward? Perhaps a daughter or son of Edward and Vivian, played by Hollywood's rising stars. Casting new, Blood could give the sequel the multi-generational spark it needs. Blending nostalgia with freshness. Behind the camera, the conversation becomes even more emotional. The original film was directed by Garry Marshall, a beloved figure who sadly passed away in 2016. Marshall's ability to mix comedy, heart, and charm was unmatched, and Pretty Woman remains one of his greatest legacies. The question now is, who will step up to carry his vision forward? Some speculate it could be one of today's acclaimed romance directors, while others believe a filmmaker who worked closely with Marshall in the past might take the reins, ensuring the sequel pays tribute to him while pushing the story into modern territory. No matter who directs, one thing is clear: the spirit of Garry Marshall will hover over every frame, guiding the heart of the film. And then there's the production timeline. While official dates are tightly under wraps, industry insiders whisper that the film could begin shooting within the next year. With a release date targeted for 2026, studios know the weight of this project. They're not rushing it. Every detail, from the costumes to the soundtrack, will be meticulously designed to honor the original while appealing to a modern audience. The fashion in Pretty Woman became legendary, with Vivian's red gown and thigh-high boots becoming cultural symbols. Fans will be watching closely to see what iconic looks the sequel will deliver. Music, too, will be essential. Who can forget Roy Orbison's "Oh, Pretty Woman" echoing through the first film? Will the sequel revive the same anthem or surprise us with a new theme that captures the essence of Edward and Vivian today? The soundtrack could be the emotional thread tying the past and present together. As excitement builds, social media has already exploded with speculation. Fans are creating mock posters, fan-made trailers, and dream casting lists for supporting roles. Entertainment outlets are covering every detail, from rumored filming locations to interviews where Roberts and Gere carefully avoid giving too much away. The buzz isn't just industry-driven, it's fan-fueled, and that energy is exactly what the studio needs to make this sequel a global event. One thing is certain: this isn't just another film in development. This is one of the most anticipated reunions in Hollywood history. With Julia Roberts and Richard Gere confirmed, the right creative team circling the project, and decades of anticipation behind it, Pretty Woman 2 has all the ingredients to become not just a sequel, but a cinematic event that defines a new generation of romance films.